Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS and also representing our sister company in New Zealand, G&A Warburtons. Welcome once again to an online jewellery demonstration where we take you into a jeweller's workshop somewhere in Australia or Australasia even. And this week we're taking you to sunny Geelong and the even sunnier Chris Sherwin. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone.
Great to have you back on board. There is a little bit of sunlight coming through your window there, so that's good.
It's breaking through the clouds.
And the rain and the...
That's right. And my neighbour's decided to cut his lawn. So,
oh, really? So you got a lawnmower going?
You got the hedge trimmer going in the background, probably.
Okay, yeah. Oh, well, we'll battle on. The show must go on, as they say.
Yeah.
Now, great to have you back, Chris. And today the title of our presentation is How to Make Basic Earring Connections and Findings. So would you like to tell us a bit about what we've got in store today?
Thank you, Peter. Today we're going to do a little bit of recap on just soldering posts onto earrings, and then we'll make some hooks up, make some butterflies, and we'll talk about the various types of earring connections you can make. So if we go over a couple of sessions, that might happen, but this morning we'll make a good start, I think. Excellent.
We'll get through today. So I'd like to welcome everyone on board, and if you'd like to say good day by letting us know where you're from, that would be lovely.
Absolutely. So, if you've got any questions, throw them to Peter and we'll try to answer them for you.
I'm sure we will answer them, Chris. Yes, indeed. Okay, so where do we start, Chris?
So perhaps start by showing everyone, just sort of recap a little bit on putting posts onto earrings. I've got some simple ammonite earrings here I'm going to show you. They're little fossil shapes, fossil forms, if you like. And I've got a post on the back of them. And I'm just going to show you how to tension those and then shape them up so that you get a nice little groove in the back of them to apply your fishtail fitting or your butterfly fitting on the post. So we want to make sure that those are nice and strong. I've just soldered those on today. And the first thing you do is you make sure that your wire is longer than you actually need it, so that you can get on with your trusty parallel pliers and give it a few twists and test your solder joint. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to grab that wire. And
what's the length of wire that we require?
Probably about 2 centimeters, because we're going to end up with something around about 10.5 mils in length to be finished.
Okay.
That's all that you need through an ear. And I've given that a few twists, and that's given that quite a bit of tension over the wire. You want to pull it while you turn it and keep it as straight as possible. And that'll test your solder joint and give it a little bit of tension. I've already cut this first one. It's quite a bit shorter than the other one. So I've got to now cut them to the same length and then put a groove in them for the butterfly, which we'll make up together. So I'm going to put the two earrings end to end. And get my trusty side cutters. And take another millimetre or so off. And just a fraction more. Make sure they're nice and even. Once you've snipped the ends off your wire, you'll just need a nice fine escapement file. Half round will do for a flat. Roll the end of the wire over so it doesn't hurt the wearer when they put it through their ear. Round that up. That's done, and I've now got 2 earring posts the same length. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a fishtail fitting now, or a butterfly fitting, which of course you can buy commercially. Tiny little fishtails. I'll show you that on the other camera. They have a little turned up ends, a little bit of a flat in this circular center to them. They're drilled through so that the post goes through there. And then the 2 little fishtails, or the 2 little armishes on the end, squeeze the post and hug the post, and that secures the back of the ear. But we're going to make our own because they are quite easy to make. So I've prepared a little bit of wire into sheet. It's about 3 millimeters wide, and I'll just measure it for you. So it's a strip of wire, square wire rolled into flat sheet. Only has to be around about 0.25, 0.3 thick. This is actually 0.35 of a mil. And the sort of length that you need for a fishtail is about 18 millimeters, a minimum of 18 mils, because you've got to turn the ends up and it gets small quite quickly.
Yes, I can imagine.
So I'll measure up 18 mils on my vernier calipers. Squared up one end. Make a quick mark there. It's thin material, so you don't have to saw cut it. Just cut it with your soldering snips. And that's my length of wire. And I just need to square up the cut end. And this will harden up when I bend it around, so it can be fully annealed. Flatten the end of the wire. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little chamfer on the end of the wire, so it's not sharp at the end. It's just a slight little chamfer. Couple of little nips on that end. Same on that end. Opposite side. Alrighty. Now, before I bend that up, I'm actually going to mark the center. I'm not going to drill the center, because if you drill the center of these, you'll find that they'll V up. They won't have a nice curve on them. So I'm just going to use my dividers. Little mark that side. That side. And then if I can find my scribe, here it is. Sharp point with the scribe. Make a little sharp point right in the center of that wire, so that after I've bent it up, I can see exactly where I have to drill.
Can you show us that on the camera, Chris?
Yeah, so you might be able to see that. It's a little hard for the camera to sort of focus there, but that's the length of the wire, and it does have a little mark in the center. I'll do it with the black back pen so you can see where the mark is. Hopefully the camera might pick that up now. Yeah, little black mark there. And I'm going to bend this up with the round nose pliers.
Yeah, how hard is it to get the same bend on both sides?
Yeah, so I'm going to grab this very carefully with the round nose pliers, so the double round nose. Get right to the end and start curling that in. One side And then I'm going to go to the other side. Right to the end. Grab it gently.
What's the trick to getting the same size on each side, Chris?
Just using exactly the same point on the pliers.
Mm-hmm.
So just insert the pliers. See if I can show you that with the camera. I'm starting to curl it up.
Yeah.
And if you insert the pliers to exactly the same depth, both times, it has to be exactly that depth. You can see my little black mark there on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
If I turn it, you can just see the curl starting to happen from either end. I just continue to curl those around until they almost meet in the center. So, same point on the pliers, gently squeeze and release and turn. Go back to the other side. And because your round nose are slightly conical, you may have to turn your pliers around so that you don't end up with a conical bend. And that's not too bad. They're pretty good. Just check that. Yep, so now I'm going to put the pliers in both sides. Hold it back up to the camera again, and you'll see that they meet perfectly in the center there.
Indeed.
And I've just got to open them a fraction before I drill the hole, go through that little black mark in the center there. So I'll drill that hole now. Start with something fairly small. I'll start with the 0.8, that'll do. So most of your earring wires are going to be 0.9 up to about 1 millimeter. I want to make sure that that hole's right in the center. It's going well. I'm going to just open this up just a little bit with a very fine flat nose. I'm just going to go back with my round nose and just pull them apart just a fraction, just so I don't damage the fish tails when I go through with the drill bit. Open that up a bit. Let's go back to drilling that carefully. There we are, we've gone through at 0.8. And what I'll do now, because the metal is so thin, see if I can find a 1 mil drill bit here. You want the hole to be very tight, actually. You don't want it to be a loose hole. You don't want to have a 1.2 drill bit going through and a 0.9 wire, because the wire will just flop around and the fishtail won't hold on properly. Just holding the drill bit with the parallels and just cutting that by hand. Prime a post. That looks like the right size. Yep. Parallels, a little groove in them, those ones. And you'll see on commercial butterflies or fishtail fittings, they'll have a groove on the actual flat sheet itself, and you can do that if you want to do that beforehand. But I find if you tension them right, it should hug the wire nicely. And try that again with the post. Yep, definitely needs to be a fraction bigger. Happy to go back to my drill bit again. Put that 1 mil through. There it goes. Perfect. Getting a good, really good little entry on that. All right, so there's my fishtail on the post. And I've actually put a groove already in my wire. So you want the curvature on the fishtail to flick into the groove of the wire. So I'll show you how to do that. So I can push that down further. That would push right onto the back of the earlobe. And it's a little bit hard to see with the camera there. That's a bit better. You can see there's a little groove in that wire.
Yeah.
So when I pull that fishtail back up the groove, it should lock into the wire, and that stops you from losing the fishtail fitting off the end of the wire. The little curves wrap into that little groove. You just see it there. And it should be quite a hard snap to get it off. So to put that groove in, it's really quite simple. It's a nice little trade trick if you like. Mark that with a little black pen about 2 millimeters back from the end of the wire. And if you use side cutters, find mine. These are end cutters actually. So if you use the end cutters and you put the end cutter on that wire, on that black mark, and you just gently hold the wire. So you're just holding them gently. You don't want to snip the wire off. So I'm holding the post in the end cutters.
Yep.
And I'm now going to revolve very gently that wire with the minimum of pressure on the end cutters, and the sharpness of the end cutters will make a groove in the wire without snipping the wire off. I now have a little groove in the wire. It's very, very fine. You can just see there where the black mark is. And now I can go back in with a very fine escapement file. So a super fine escapement file, round escapement file, and I'm going to just open that groove out a little bit wider. But that cut from the end cutters gives you an excellent location point. You can do it with the back of your saw blade. You can file backwards with the saw blade, do the same thing. But the little groove from the end cutter is very, very handy. And it lets me get around with the rat tail escapement file and widen that groove just wide enough. You're only dealing with a 1 mil wire here, or a 0.9 wire. You really can't afford to chop into the wire too far. You'll weaken it. But it lets you make that groove that little bit wider so that the fishtail fitting will grab onto it really nicely. Just take your time. You're probably making that groove around about 1 millimeter wide rather than, 0.2 or 0.3. Now I've got it all the way around. Just about there. That's why it's important to have a really good selection of needle files and escapement files. They are so incredibly handy for making fine jewellery. I was actually in AJS the other day buying some more because they do wear out. I do love
Yes, they're designed that way.
So I've got a really nice little groove in there now. Now, if I want to tighten up that fitting for any reason, you just use your round nose pliers, put them into the two ends of your fishtail and just gently squeeze them together a fraction. Just slowly bring them in, release them. Nice little click. Yep, locking in beautifully now. So there's my fishtail fitting, locking into the groove. It's a pity you can't hear it. Pull it down, and as I push it up to release it off the back of the earring, off the back of the ear, it gets to the top. Oops, it's very tight now, but it will get to the top and it locks into the groove before it releases, so that you don't lose the earring. Could be an expensive earring, you don't want to lose it. So we've now made a tensioned 0.3 mil sterling silver handmade butterfly.
Great job.
Pretty quick to make, and yeah, I know they're cheap to buy, but once you start getting into 18 karat gold or platinum and you can't get the size that you want or the thickness that you want or the quality you want, easy to make. They're not hard to make at all.
Mm. And
So,
the extra satisfaction you get out of
the
doing it
extra
yourself.
satisfaction.
Mm.
Okay, so that was a simple one. Let's just look at some other options. Some people have earlobes that give them problem. Their earrings hang. If their earrings hang, you can make a disc up. This one's a disc. It also has fishtail fittings on the bottom, all handmade by me, of course. There's a sort of little heart shapes. Got a little heart shape in your fishtail fitting. And does the same job, but it's because it's wider at the back with the disc. If we compare it to the ones I just made, these are tiny, and we compare it to this one here, completely different size fishtail fitting.
Mm.
This one has the rather large disc. So the advantage of the disc is you can put your quality marks on there. You can see my quality marks are on there, and it also helps push at the back of the ear. So at the back of the lobe, and someone who's got a very heavy earring, a fitting like that will help the earring sit up appropriately when they're wearing it. So you have that at the back of your ear pushing up against a really heavy earring. Unfortunately, I don't have my ears pierced, but I can't demonstrate that very well. But
yeah, no, that looks really spectacular, Chris. Well
yeah,
done.
they're very easy to make. It's the same principle. You make up your fishtail fitting. The only thing you don't do is you don't drill your hole through until you've got it soldered onto a disc. So you just need to make up a 8 or 9 or 10 millimeter disc, make up that same fishtail fitting, a very light dome in your disc on the doming block, and then solder your fishtail into the center of the disc, and then you just take your time and drill through, probably from the back, drill your way out through the front of the disc, and you'll have a really nice, strong, handmade fishtail fitting with the disc at the back for supporting larger earrings.
Mm.
So that's that one. So that's your fishtails. Have a bit of fun with those. There's a lot you can do to make those, a lot of variations, and it's just practice, like everything.
It makes perfect, that's for sure.
What makes perfect. So I'm going to move all those samples aside. We've covered all of that this morning, which is good. So now we're going to make some, we're going to make up some tension hooks. So hook fittings for earrings. Got my little ones I used to do for Geelong Grammar School. I can't mention the name because it's copyright. But these are little earrings I did for the school, and they're little tree shapes, but they've got a nice handmade hook on them.
So what's copyright, Chris?
The name of the place.
That you said.
So let's show you how to make up some nice hooks. So most hooks and posts are 0.9 mil, maybe 1 mil. I've even made them 1.1 for people who've got, really big holes in their ears. I would recommend, if you're going to make hooks for earrings, that you work with pre-tension wire. So I always start with about 1.2 millimeters round, fully annealed, and then I hard draw it, which is not that hard. So this wire has been pulled down from 1.2 to 1 millimeter, or 0.95, very close to 1 millimeter, and it has a reasonable tension. It's not incredibly hard, but it's that sort of 20% of hardening through drawing through the draw plate, because that's what's going to give you the tension in your earring. If you work with fully annealed wire, your earrings are going to be really soft and they're going to go out of shape, and I don't recommend that. So often the challenge in making earring wires and earring hooks is to make them look exactly the same. And a lot of us with experience, you can just use your round nose pliers, flat pliers, your half round pliers, 6 or 10 different manipulations, and you'll make a really nice hook. And then you make a second one and it's not quite the same. They're never the same. Unless you become very automated in the way you make them, or you're very experienced. So one way of making them is using a jig, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's a good way of making very consistent hook shapes. So here I go. I'm going to make a pair of hook earrings very quickly for you. Get the wire, file the end flat and square. Use your round nose and half flat and your flat pliers, because they do less damage, because if you use round, you're going to put a little mark in the back of your wire. And I want to make a turn in the wire that's around about 1.25, 1.35 opening to go through the actual earring. I'll show you the earring in a second. And the first thing I do is I turn up a loop on the wire. So I've turned up a simple loop on the end of that wire, which is around about a 1.3 opening. It's quite small, right? Quite a small opening. Now the wire's a really strange shape at the moment. It's just a loop on the end. I've got to straighten that up. So I'm going to turn that into an eyelet. So I'm going to change pliers, and I'm going to go in with the round nose, rat tail ones. And I'm going to make that into an eyelet by bending it up to 90 degrees. And we'll show you that. That's now coming straight out, if you like, out of the eyelet. And you can see the little join there to one side. So it's joined to one side, swings around, comes out at 90 degrees. Right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is my little jig. I'm not sure whether AJS sell these, but you can make your own very quickly. These are really handy for working with wire work. You can get a piece of masonite or timber and drill a whole series of holes. A lot of this I've made up myself. So all of these little fittings with the pin ends. The pin end fits the drill hole in the sheet. And I turn all these up on the lathe. You may not have a lathe, but I have all these different diameter round jigs that I can work with. And to make up this earring, I've got a very fine one. And I actually use the post end to put through my eyelet. And then I wrap the wire around the second little brass jig. And I get every time exactly the same earring shape.
Very nifty, Chris.
I'm going to put that pin through that opening.
Yeah.
If I can't, I'm going to open it up a little bit. I can't get it through, so I'm going to just open it up a fraction. Go back in with the pliers and just squeeze the wire down a little bit lower down and drop it on the floor.
Is that mandatory? It will happen at some stage.
It's called going out of scene. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, it's stage left. Yeah.
Stage left, that's right. Open that up a little bit too far. Let me just close it a bit. It's better. Get a bit rough on that one. Yeah, I definitely got a bit rough on that one. All right. So I'm going to pop that through. It's just sitting on the post now.
Yep.
Through there. That goes into my jig. And I'm going to put my little brass piece right next to it. So it's a nice tight fit. That's it. And I now bend that around that brass wire. So I'm curving it around. I'm actually forming the shape of the earring, which is now formed. If I take that out, I'll show you straight away again. You can see where I wrapped around the brass wire. I've got a really nice curve on the earring. I just lift that pin out. And I've just got to finish the earring off. So here's the earring. And if you make all of your pieces like that, you'll have earrings that have exactly the same loop in them, the same curvature. They'll be consistent. And that's what you want. You want a pair of earrings that are a real pair, like a pair of shoes.
Mm.
Unlike a pair of shoes I bought once that had two different surfaces on them.
On the top of the shoe?
Yeah, one. I went into a shop that I won't name, and they had these lovely black shoes, lovely Italian shoes. They were $650, and they were reduced to $320.
There's a reason.
But I've got to have those. And I looked at them and I thought, hang on, they're really shiny, sort of what do you call it? Broge?
Yeah,
very
brogue,
shiny.
yeah.
And the other ones had like a crocodile structure to them. And I said, hang on, these shoes are not the same. And they'd realized they'd sold someone else a mismatched pair.
Oh no, someone else has walked away.
Yeah. So I got an extra discount.
But the other person paid $600
my
for
black
theirs.
shoes with the two different surface finishes.
But Chris, the other person paid $600 for their mixed match shoes.
That's right. And I paid less than $300. Anyway.
Anyway, the time you spent developing that little template is well worth it, I'm sure.
Oh, that's right. Those little templates are fantastic. They really are. I'm putting my half round on now, just flicking the wire back, give it a nice little curve back. So take that off. That'll be my earring hook, and I just slide my finger up to the length I want to have it, reasonable sort of length earring. Snip that off, and then I'll make the second one of the pair. And then there we have our little hook. I'll only make the one because it'll save a bit of time, but yeah, I can make earrings that are absolutely identical just by using a little jig. But you can do it by hand. You can use multiple pliers. You just have to be very systematic with it. And so the beauty of having pre-tension wire is you end up with an earring that's got some spring to it, some real shape. It won't go out of shape when the client wears it. That's almost a shape now. That's fine. All right. So all I need to do with the earring like that is to getting a bit of a mess in my tray here. Do a quick tidy. As a jeweler always has to do, keep tidying up.
I'm sure.
You can't find anything anymore. That's what I
So
was
I'll just ask our viewers, Chris, if they've got any questions or comments or any input from your perspective, please come forward. Just put a comment in the comments box and we'd be happy to read it and respond.
Always happy to answer your questions. It's easy when you're demonstrating to forget that people miss something, or I accidentally miss something, and then it's a detail that's important later. Okay, there it is. One little trick I'd like to show you. Again, I keep saying to people, you always need to have lots and lots of Moore's discs and silicon wheels. And one thing you can do with your silicon wheel, if I can find it, I was using it this morning. I've definitely got too many tools, Peter.
Uh-oh. It's hiding from you, obviously.
Set it down somewhere. Can't see it. It'll bob up in a second. Don't worry. I'm just going to show people how to round the edge of that wire. I actually take these silicon impregnated wheels, and I cut a groove into one of the flat wheels, and then I can soften the end of the wire up. So I can actually go over the wire, the tip of that wire, and create a perfectly smooth end to go through the ear. So a real comfort fitting for the ear. So there's no jagged.
Okay.
But I can't see it at the moment. I've moved it. Oh, here it is. It's right in front of me. I'll show you these two on the camera.
Yep.
That's a standard silicon brownie, a flat brownie. And if you cut a groove into it, see the little groove in there?
Yeah.
That groove allows you to go onto a wire and run the wire in the groove and just roll up over the wire. And you end up with a perfectly rounded wire, polished on all sides, compared to using a flat brownie. So you can see the groove there. See it against my finger. Nice little groove wire. Very easy to put in with the scribe. And they just roll up over the wire. I'll show you that on camera.
That's a great little trick there, Chris.
These are great little tips. You can just put your wire in, and that will follow the shape of the wire. I'm on a difficult angle here. Turn it around. Do the same on that side. And it rolls over the wire, and you get a really nicely polished wire in the end. Nice, soft finish on your wire. After you've scratched it up using your escapement file.
So it seems to be that a part of being a jeweler is that you actually do manufacture a lot of your own little tools that you use for little jobs like that.
Absolutely. Whether it's shaping your pliers, reshaping them, whether it's creating little jigs and devices, changing your floppy disks, reshaping them. Yeah, they're all important things in jewelry making. All right, so I've got a pair of earrings here. So I'm going to finish off the second one of these pair of hanging earrings. So these have got hooks on it, which I've made, and just show you some of the connections you need to think about when you're making a pair of earrings. So I've got a little drop shape, and I've got this connecting point. And obviously you need to think about the direction the earring sits in. You don't want it sitting sideways to the face. You want it front onto the body. So you've got to think about the direction your eyelid is on the earring itself and how you change direction every time you add a link. So if I add one link to that earring will go from front on to side on, because the top of this is your ear in here in the hook. And if I add just one little link in between, it turns everything sideways.
90 degrees.
90 degrees. So I've got all my bits and pieces over here. I've got the actual earring front itself. And I've got my little drop shape. That's the little dropper. and I've already soldered a loop to the top of that. And I'm going to fit a loop in between. So I'm going to put a jump ring in between these two pieces, and then I'm going to connect the hook to the top of the drop shape. So I'm going to grab my 90-degree, if you like, jump ring. Just open that out a little bit.
So is this an earring that you've produced a number of before, Chris?
It is. It's one of my sort of favourites. I give away to very special people.
Okay.
Going to connect my drop shape and close up the jump ring. So that's my drop shape with the jump ring connection in between the two. Nice little jump ring in between the two. That turns me 90 degrees. And now when I put my hook through the top loop, it will bring me back 90 degrees again, and that will be facing the front. Grab my hook. Again, it's pre-tensioned. I've made it on the jig. Carefully open that out. Twist the loop sideways. And make sure I put it on the right way around, not back to front. Nothing worse than an earring that's facing the wrong way, is there?
Well, I wouldn't know, but I'm sure there isn't. Yeah.
You're not wearing them either. Well, there you go. So I've got to just close up that loop now. So there it is, hanging from the hook, and I'll close that up, and I'll show you that one finished. So just think about all the connections you have in your earrings. If you want them to drop, how many loops you need in between, whether you need to solder in between, whether you can do it under tension. But certainly nice to make your hooks and your fittings with real tension on them when you give them to the customer. You don't really want to be making earring hooks that are soldered. And there we are, finished. Now I've got a pair of earrings, and they're both facing the right way.
That was the plan.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
So nice drop shapes, nice articulation. They move really nicely. They're nothing to catch or gather. And they've got a pair of hooks on them that are absolutely identical. I could put those together, and that's what you should be able to do, is get your earring hooks, hold them together, and they should have exactly the same shape. They should sit right over the top of each other. It's a little bit hard to do on camera, but they do work out perfectly. This exactly the same radius, the same shape.
Because it's all part of the presentation. When the customer's buying them, that's what they're looking at. And if they're wonky, won't be as impressed as if they're nicely symmetrical. Eh?
That's right. Yep, your clients, once their eyes get in, you're not a clean, fastidious jeweler, they'll be a bit worried about everything.
So just to divert for a second, Chris, they're lovely earrings, and obviously there's a bit of thought and planning goes into developing that design. So what's your process when you come up with a design? Do you do a bit of stuff on paper, or what do you do?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I spend a lot of time sketching what I want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes, so these particular ones are a production item that I do, but yeah, anything like that, you have to put a lot of thought into it. Especially if you're going to produce things in any sort of number at all, they have to be very well designed, very well put together. Whatever your technique of putting them together is, you have to think through the best methods of soldering, the best methods of production, but everything starts as a drawing.
Indeed. So when you say it's a production item, what do you mean by that?
So these ones I've made for about 30 years, and I think the first 4 or 5 pairs I made, everything was by hand. And then I decided I'm going to make a particular size and style, and I'm going to make a master pattern and mold them and cast them.
Yeah.
So the lower sections of these, I have a master pattern for them, and I cast these in various alloys, gold and silver. Yeah, but it's a successful design I've done by hand many times. And you know, if people want gems, particularly gemstones, then you often have to make things totally by hand. But it's a successful style that people know that that's a production item that I produce.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. Gives you economies of scale.
Yeah. So a couple of more things we'll talk about, and then we might do a part 2 on earrings. So just to show you that there's a lot more to it. So we've covered posts fairly quickly. We've covered making hooks and that need to articulate properly.
Chris, can I just interrupt a second?
Sure.
Dawn's come forward with a question. So she missed the beginning, and she just wants to know, what gauge wire are you using for your hooks?
Usually 0.95 to 1 mil. Commercially, I think a lot of people use 0.8, 0.9. I just find it far too thin. I guess we could all, talk about having your ears pierced, and, maybe being a guy, not that many men have their ears that pierced, but I just find that through experience, most people after a few years can easily put 1 millimeter through their hole in their ear. So 0.95, just a fraction under a millimeter is fine for me. But it's a good question. Some people put 0.8 through. I've seen 0.7. It just doesn't have the strength for me at all. And it does make a big difference if you go from 0.9, from 0.8 to 0.9 or 0.9 to 0.95. It really does add a lot of strength to the earring and longevity. And that's what it's about for me.
No worries. Thank you for that question, Dawn.
Good question.
Thanks for the answer, Chris.
And then also make sure you pre-tension your wire. So draw it through 3 or 4 holes in the draw plate to give it some tension. Otherwise, it's going to be too soft.
And Chris, just to follow up on that, she asks, is it the same for the posts?
Same. 0.95 is fine. Sometimes I make it 1 mil, but 0.95, just a fraction under a millimeter is fine.
Excellent. Thank you, Dawn.
Good question. So some of the other earrings we could just talk about them briefly without showing anything. You can obviously buy all sorts of things. I think the last demo I did, we talked about making threads, and you can get these threaded fittings you can buy with the post on them. These are for earrings that screw up at the back, obviously. Very, very difficult to make, expensive to make, but you can purchase them, and as I said, you can hand make them, because I do hand make threads. But that's another type of earring where you would solder that wire onto your actual earring itself, and then you bend the wire up into a U shape so that the earring could be screwed up at the back of the ear. Just showing you what's commercially available. They are commercially available. What I prefer to do, here's a nice pair of earrings I made for my wife some time ago. These are platinum and pure gold and set with rubies. And these are what I call gypsy earrings, or Zigeuner earrings, as they would be called in German. And they are held using a hook at the back on a little hinge at the back. So I've made a little hinge joint. They unhook from the top at the back, and so these go into the back of your earring. Your earlobe goes in between. The hook goes through the ear, and then the bottom of the hook clips into the back of the earring. So I'll get it a bit closer.
Yep.
So there's a little joint here, a little rivet, little platinum rivet goes through there. And you can see at the back of the earring, I have a little platinum jump ring at the back, where the hook, you just push down on the hook, and it releases, and that hook goes in that little hole in the back there. And that's typically what you'd call like a gypsy earring. Goes in, clicks into the opening, and it's secure at the back, and you see the front of the earring. So might cover that next time a little bit more. I think I might have talked about that before, but it's worth having another look at. That's a great style of earring. I think I've made many handmade earrings, opal ones. These are platinum and gold. I've actually got you can probably see the pure gold inlay in the front. They're a little bit shiny. Must be too much sunshine here in Geelong. But there's a pure gold inlay, and I've just gypsy set the you just see the gold inlay there and the ruby in the front with the 18 karat gold edge on it. So they're a combination of 18 karat and pure gold and platinum, 18 karat at the back. They're all quality marked, and I've got my little design at the back there.
Very nice. I'm sure your wife
They're
appreciated
very
those. Comfortable
sort of earrings. So that's sort of your gypsy style that come in from the back of the ear and that lock in. And then we might cover next time pressure earrings along that style that use pressure or springs. I'll just do a little bit of a teaser, show you what we could cover next time. Some people do not have their ears pierced for various reasons. I've met people who've had their ears pierced, who've had all sorts of problems with their earlobes. So you can actually make pressure fittings. This is a typical pressure fitting. It's on a chenier at the moment. That chenier will be cut off. But these types of earrings have a joint, and they have the bit that sits at the back of your earlobe, and they push up on the back of your earlobe, and when they're pushed up, they're very firm on the back of the lobe, and they squeeze the earring onto the earlobe. They're a little bit fiddly to make, so that's it fully released. The earlobe comes in between, and that's pushed up, and as I push it up, it gets harder and harder to push up, and it locks against the earlobe, and your earlobe then holds the earring. The other type of earring we might discuss next time are the wire ones. These are quite sophisticated, so it's a little bit more advanced. Well, a lot more advanced. These are the earrings where you have a wire that effectively it's just like the last earring I showed you, but there is a joint and a wire, very fine wire goes through my spring-loaded wire, which again is shaped to push against your earlobe, between your earlobe and your ear. That would be your ear in between. And when these are set properly, they flick like that, flicks now under tension. Just give it a light push, and it flicks down, and that pushes up against your ear, and it holds the earring onto your ear. These are very expensive to make because they are extremely time consuming, but they really do push your skill to the next level, and they are worth being able to make. You can purchase them, but they're never this sort of quality. They're just never that sort of thickness or quality. But it's a lot of skill in those, and I'll perhaps show you how to make those next time.
Well, that'd be exciting. Yes.
Yeah. We might spend a fair bit of time in the next time just showing you the two different stages of making those and the importance of making templates. So that earring I showed you before with the little pressure plate at the back, I have two templates for those that I make up, that I keep. I'll bring those around.
Sure.
This is the joint end, which has specific shape to it, and this is the pressure plate end, which goes on the back of the earlobe. And if you make up templates like that, which I would recommend, then you can keep those, and every time you make a pair, you can measure the thickness of the sheet and then use your scribe and work your way around the scribe and scratch it onto a fresh piece of metal, and then keep your templates in a little doggy bag, little plastic bag like I do. And then you've got forever got that template, and you know it works. So templates are a really good way of being efficient and being consistent and getting a great finish on what could be a good idea, the next good idea, right?
Indeed. Yeah, there's always one around the corner.
We're all after that, the best idea you can come up with. It's all about design.
Well, thanks for today, Chris. I'm sure people have got a lot out of that. And
Thank you.
We will look forward to the next adventure in jewellery making with Chris Sherwin.
We'll step it up a notch next time. And while it's here raining in Geelong now, it's the sun has definitely gone. It's time for my coffee. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. And as I say, keep your tools sharp and clean, and good jewellery making.
Indeed. Thanks everybody. Thank you very much, Chris. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone. See you now. See you next time. Bye.